This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. I am very excited for today's session because, well, you can see, if you're looking at the live, you can see some of the really cool stuff that we will hopefully get a chance to talk about today, like the Rebirth video, which I think is over 1 million views, but beyond that is just so cool. Such a really wonderful presentation of the tech and how things are getting pushed. I have with me here Wiktor Ohman.
Thank you.
I had to reinforce that.
Yeah,
Wiktor
of
Ohman
course.
of Quixel. He's a 3D artist, an art lead over at Quixel. And so I'm going to dive in and start talking to him about the artist path and all that cool stuff. So Wiktor, man, thank you so much for being here.
No, for sure. Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Awesome. So first, why don't we start with what you're doing now? And what you're doing now, you've been doing for about, if I saw correctly, about 7 years. So what do you do now?
Yeah, exactly. So 7 years a week ago or something. So
Hmm.
what I do now is, as you said, I'm the art lead at Quixel, and I'm also a product strategist for Mixer over at Quixel. So I've been so mainly what I do right now is, or actually been doing for a couple of years now, is creating promotional artwork,
Hmm.
uh, marketing material, and um, pretty much anything that can sort of visually help Quixel spread the word. Get our stuff out there.
Hmm.
So I've been doing. If you're looking at the live stream here, I've been doing everything from material and texture studies from to full-blown environments, and I've been doing a couple of homages like fan art to Blade Runner, Deus Ex, all that kind of stuff. So it really anything that I think people will appreciate and that I appreciate, I and that we can use sort of as marketing and for Quixel. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now as an artist, and then as a product strategist, I sort of help bring an artistic point of view to the development of the mixer,
Hmm.
uh, which is a texturing tool we develop at Quixel. So the yeah, so really what I do is I'm trying to explain in an easy way was what I do there. But yeah, really, I talk with the developers and I try and you know bring my point of view and an artist's point of view into
Hmm.
what we sort of need and sort of where the tools and features should be headed.
Yeah, and develop these proof of concepts like this Desert Storm type scene that we're looking
Hmm.
at the top.
Yep.
So this is a really interesting path to me, as I was explaining to you earlier, because this is actually what I did at ZBrush.
Right.
Um, you know, kind of helping to build pipelines and help people understand what the process is. And what I find fascinating about this is you have, especially over the last 7 years, you've literally been at the epicenter of the change in environment arts as it's moved from, just some Photoshop maps and tiled textures to scan datas, materials, procedural materials, um, and procedural modeling, and all
Mhm.
that stuff. So what is it that you are focused on today? And ultimately what I want to get to is what you think students need to be focused on today to help them grow, because the students are always kind of on my mind. But what are you focused on today in terms of what Quixel does? Like, what is the essential features, the essential kind of tech that's important to you?
Well, so really I guess I can sort of answer that in two ways. So as
Hmm.
an artist, like I'm always trying to make bigger and better things faster, and that is also what Quixel is trying to do. So it's it's really a fantastic job because me as an artist, um I really strive to be able to output as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and without crunching. So and that is the same thing. Like, that is the same thing that Quixel wants to do. We want to make, remove the crunch and remove all the repetitive work, and we want to make the artist's life more enjoyable, really.
Hmm.
So being there and helping spread that word, and helping be part of the development is absolutely fantastic, because not only does it help me, and it also helps the industry as a whole. Um, so um, that was, I guess, part of the question. What was the second part?
I always
Um,
forget myself.
so
But the basic questions, like what is the tech that's important for us to focus on? So you mentioned you're at Quixel, and you're focused on getting work done quickly and at a high quality so that people aren't crunching.
yeah,
But I guess what we could do is say, what does that mean? Like, because this is an area that is evolving so fast. I find some students, especially like at some colleges, they'll just be like, "Hey, I just figured out Maya, and I do modeling, right?" But we're like 20 years past modeling at this point. So,
yeah.
what is the tech that you're looking at and that you find important for environment artists to focus on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it definitely depends on the sort of what you're working on. But like for
Hmm.
me, as an environment artist, working on mainly, science fiction or
Hmm.
more realistic style things, I would say, obviously coming from Quixel, I'm gonna say, scanned assets. But
Yeah.
regardless of that, I would say that is an enormous time saver, and it really, it's like, for me, it's really let me focus on the thing that I love doing the most, and that I think is the most important, and that is, visual storytelling, and actually being an artist. Because being an artist to me is not about, making a nice wireframe, or making crazy stuff in a software. It's there's a result that matters. Making something that tells a story, that evokes emotion, and that sort of challenges me on a more high level. Make the lighting, composition, as I said, the story. So that is one thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Does that answer
So
your question?
yeah, we'll get there.
Mhm.
And so scan's important. Scan's a big part of Quixel.
Yeah.
What is scans? What are the other options that are out there? Because there's modeling, there's
Mhm.
scanning, there's procedural
Yeah.
materials.
Yep.
Um, and so when we look at scan data, Quixel has a very interesting concept, I think, of the importance of scan. Because somebody might look at this and say it's photogrammetry in it, but how do you think about scan data helping environment artists? Can you give me some examples of um, of some of the more innovative uses of scan data? Because we're not talking about just, hey, here's a rock. We're talking about more than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're scanning. Well, I'm not scanning, but the guys at Quixel are scanning. Every single part of a rock. Like, we have moss, and we have, tiling rock textures, and we have 3D rock models. We have small mushrooms and twigs, and needles. Like, we have every single part that you would need to actually create your own rock, except it contains, all that fine detail, all the, really high fidelity details that you might not be able to achieve manually.
Hmm.
Like, there are so many things in the world that you don't think about, because you're just so used to seeing it. um, it's kind of hard to explain, but I just feel you come such a long way if if you use stuff that is in the real world, if you want to recreate the real world.
Hmm.
It's
Isn't it cheating?
I don't think so at all.
Me either. I just that's a devil's advocate position because that's something that comes up. People are like, I need to model this from
Yeah,
scratch, and then the company will know I'm a true artist.
exactly. I mean, I totally see where they're coming from. Absolutely. But I would not say it's cheating at all. I mean, it's the same thing as like, carpenters don't make their own boards, and like they don't grow their own trees. Like they, it's I see. I absolutely see what they mean. It's the like pride in the craft, and making like having complete ownership of everything from start to finish. But like is that's not always necessary. It's like what matters is the output. What matters is the worlds we create and how they look. And with this these sort of assets, like we're able to create more beautiful worlds faster, cheaper, and easier, and more time to spare in your free time.
Yeah.
So
Now,
yeah.
what's the advantage of that? Like, if we were just selling that to somebody and they're like, "Well, I got plenty of time, I'll model," what's the other advantage to being able to grab scans and assemble them? And I'll preface this by saying, like, it was a recent conversation, I think, with the guys. Oh no, this was actually a private conversation with somebody who's working on the Avengers game,
Mm.
and they basically got, if I remember correctly, they got rid of their in-house photogrammetry team because they were just like, it's so much easier to go to mega scans and we just grab everything.
Oh, really?
So what is the advantage of these tools, these advanced tools that are coming out, like scans and processing of scans that you guys do, and
So
mixer?
so the advantage, I guess I sort of covered that, answered that before. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just more beautiful, easier, faster, cheaper. I guess are the main advantages. But with that said, like obviously there's still things out there that, or maybe not out there, but things that you can't scan.
Mhm.
There are always going to be other worlds. There's going to be fantasy, sci-fi, all that kind of things, and spaceships and crazy tanks and stuff like that you won't be able to scan. So obviously, you will still need to have a solid foundation in modeling and manual texturing.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well, an
like
interesting part of this, that, sorry to interrupt, and I want to get to your early, I see this tab, the early 3Ds. I want to get to your artist journey here in a second, but I find this part very fascinating because environment arts to me has had the largest shift. Like, ZBrush changed character arts, and people lost jobs, people got jobs. It changed the industry entirely. But after that, the biggest change has been with environment artists. And it appears to me like environment artists have become storytelling's become a significantly larger part. Like, they've
mhm.
moved from just, all right, I'm background artists to an active part of the storytelling process. Do you agree
Yes,
with that?
absolutely, 100%. It's something that I've actually noticed in the last, just the last maybe 6 years, 5 6 years or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's become a really much bigger part, and um, yeah, exactly what you said, which makes me really really happy, um, because yeah, I mean it's just fun to see, because like in the real world, like you can draw so many conclusions of what's happened in a place by just looking at it.
Mm.
And back in the day, it wasn't like, for many reasons, that just wasn't the case. Like they were, as you say, like they were backdrops, just backgrounds.
Hmm.
um, so that's really fun to see.
Rebirth is a good example because it's literally an environment,
Yes,
but there's a story.
there is a story. Yes. That was a fun should I sort of go
Yeah,
over the
yeah. Talk to me about this.
yeah. So Rebirth is a short film that we at Quixel made for this GDC, actually, where we sort of revealed it at the Epic stage. And it's a film that takes place in a like very strange, almost alien looking, really cold place. I can actually play it here for those of you who are in the call here. But and what we wanted to do here with this short film was to show how, like, the convergence of real time and cinematics, like to prove that it is possible to create cinematic cinematic level of quality in real time, because this entire short film was created in Unreal Engine 4, and no crazy builds or versions of the engine, just run of the mill. I don't remember, 4.19 or something, and we were 3 people working on it. Me, Owen O'Brien, and Joe Garth as artists, of course. There were more people working, as art directors and things like that. But as the art department were me, Joe, and Owen, and we used assets that we captured on Iceland. We actually had a really, really big trip to Iceland. I think I don't know, 15 people or something, and we endured storms and rain, and yeah, it was an absolutely crazy and amazing trip. But that's where we captured these sort of alien shapes that you see in this short film. And what I did for that film was the hard surface, the architecture, both the exterior and the interior, and I also texture the car and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. So Rebirth is about kind of pushing the cinematic barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you as a product specialist and lead artist,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is, if we looked at it from just a business perspective, this was pretty successful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it opened a lot of people's eyes as to what is possible today in real time. Because I mean, I was really blown away by the quality we could achieve as well. I mean, I'm extremely proud and impressed by what we managed to achieve. So yeah, I definitely, I think it was very successful, and I got a lot of views, and people have come to me saying that it was really inspiring. So that's that made everything worth it.
Mm. There was a line in an interview Teddy had recently where so, I remember this quote. I was just reading it before this about how if everybody was a little bit more open to the changes in technology, then we would be evolving even faster.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of brings that to my mind because you guys, like 3 artists and of course some dev, um,
Mm-hmm.
pushed the boundary
Yeah.
of this tech to the point where even large companies like Epic were like, oh wow, the guys who actually make this.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we missing? What else can be done from your perspective? Because this tells to me that we're not operating in our full capacity. There's more that can be done out there. Do you agree or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think it's lack of talent or lack of will or lack of
Right.
ambition at all. I think it's I think for obvious reasons, monetary reasons, for pipelines and all that kind of stuff. I think many pipelines and many workflows are just changing a bit slowly.
Hmm.
Um, for reasons that I don't have to go into, but I think that is the main reason. I don't think it's lack of ambition on the artist side or the
Right.
producer side. I think it's just a matter of business decisions in many cases. It's like that change is yeah, it's because of that. I definitely think most artists out there are interested in upgrading or improving and changing their workflow to produce better and more art for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at your bathroom scene, because I was looking at that, I think I was looking at your tutorial actually,
Mm-hmm.
because you did a tutorial on this. Yes, I see the cracks.
Yes, I did. I did a
Okay.
tutorial and a live stream.
And so this was like the tutorial was pushed together to about an hour. Oh no, was it 12 minutes?
Yeah, this one is
Was it
12 minutes, and
seemed
the
longer than that?
breakdown, the live stream was about an hour.
Oh, okay, that must be what I watched.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at this, I think this is I don't know exactly how to state this, but I'm talking to environment artists here, and there is something I think we are missing. I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly, but there's something environment artists are missing, because you assemble this beautiful scene, which appears relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No. This was done really, really quickly, and it's actually two environments that I made.
So what are
So
we
it was
missing?
both the clean one and the dirty one.
Okay, because I think there's a mindset thing that we're missing. We're missing something that will cause some of my environment artists to spend weeks developing an environment like this when
Mm.
you put it together in an hour. So we're missing something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I have a library of materials and assets,
Yep.
just at my disposal. So like not it's just like I said before, like I could spend those hours or days just assembling and creating and building this world instead of having to you know look at reference and like, okay, how does leakage look from a urinal, and how
Right.
does tiles break down. Like I have that, like now it's just a matter of putting it to use. Like
Got it.
yeah, so that is, I'm like, I would not say I'm just kit bashing at all, but it's a matter of finding the material that I want to use, and focusing on lighting, composition, colors. Like you really have to just focus on the fundamentals of art, more than like, how do I put this? Um, I don't know how to put it, but I hope my point comes across regardless.
If I was to rephrase, I'd say you have a library. That
Mhm.
helps. So people who are beginning generally don't have that library, or maybe they've got kind of constrained resources, so they're not just buying everything at Megascans. And then the other thing is you are not focused on the particulars of how does stuff how does water drip out of a toilet? Like what kind of staining would that be? You're focused more on just the overall putting stuff together and assembling, not kit bashing, but assembling your image, and focusing there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I mean it, and that is what I really love about like this kind of workflow is I'm really, it really lets me focus and sort of come back and lean on the fundamentals that I've been learning for these years.
Yeah.
It, you know, like now the sort of language barrier comes, but yeah, complementary colors
Yeah.
and lighting, color temperature, balance in the weight of the elements in the picture and stuff like that. And that is what I absolutely love doing, and and obviously I love creating assets as well. But there are a couple of assets that I created for this scene as well. Like we don't have any scanned urinals yet, so I
Hmm.
had to make those, and I had to make the sink and the trash can, things like that. But like they're all textured using megascans. Like I'm using a brass material, I'm using a porcelain material for that, which is saving me time. So yeah, it was just an absolute blast working on this, because it was just like it was almost entirely composition and lighting and storytelling, especially in the dirty version. So
Hmm.
and yeah.
So this is kind of one of the things that I was thinking is that one of the biggest elements I think beginning environment artists are missing is the assembly process.
Mm.
They're focused on the asset creation, which, I get, it makes sense, but
Yeah.
it's the assembly of assets. Like, for example,
Mm.
as we go from where this image is right now you're actually going to start assembling cracks and,
Mm.
decals. I think decals is like right now, I think you're moving a gradient on the ground.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say, like, if there's one thing that, let's assume an environment artist has, they're modeling down. Um, what would be one thing that they need to really just focus their attention on mastering?
I would say one area where I see a lot of scenes getting a disservice from is a lack of understanding of lighting.
Yeah.
Um, like lighting is an absolute key to every. Like you can have the most beautiful assets, you can have a wonderful composition, but if the lighting isn't on par, like it's just gonna undermine the whole picture.
Hmm.
So I would say like that is the key thing to work on.
Lighting.
There are a lot of artists out there, in like let's say Archviz,
Hmm.
that can make a extremely simplistic environment. Just boxes, maybe a 45-degree angle, concrete wall, and just have a clear blue sky. Like they can make that look absolutely gorgeous. Um, Whereas I can see, really, really finely crafted sci-fi environments with beautiful assets that sort of, yeah, doesn't look very good. But so like that just goes to show how important lighting is, because you can take something simple and make it look absolutely stunning. Um, and that's something that I really respect, because that, like, I'm still, learning lighting. Like lighting is what I'm struggling with the most, I would say.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Is that a movie running?
Yes, it is.
Can you back it up like 30 seconds? I think that
Mm-hmm.
was, oh, nice. We paused right there at the,
You mean this one?
yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mixer?
Yep.
Tell me about Mixer.
Yes. So Mixer is a texturing tool that allows you to. So I'm going through the elevator pitch here, but yeah,
Yeah, by all means, by all
I'll do
means.
it more casually. So Mixer is a tool that we develop at Quixel that
Yeah.
allows you to create your own materials,
Okay.
either from scratch procedurally, or using your own materials that you created, either hand painted or scanned yourself,
Hmm.
or it can be obviously from the Megasense library. And what it does is it allows you to blend between materials
Okay.
using very simple controls. Height blending. You can height blend rocks with mud or moss with rock, and so on. And it also allows you to work procedurally. So you can I can go into, let's do this one, like this procedural desert rocks here.
Hmm.
And this one is 90% procedural. Like I made the rocks procedurally and the sand procedurally, but then I have like all the fine details are added from a scanned material. So it allows you to long story short, either make new materials from scratch, or enhance or edit and sort of augment existing materials, either with other materials or procedurally.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, that is pretty much what Mixer is, and we're working extremely hard on making it sort of the go-to tool, um, for all your texturing needs.
Okay.
And we're we're bringing over functionality from the suite. I don't know if you know about that tool.
The suite, Endu
Yeah, the
Dedu,
Quixel
or
suite. Yeah, exactly. Dedo,
yep,
Endo, Redo.
yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm. So we're bringing over a lot of functionality from there, and yeah, I'm extremely excited about it. and but we're yeah, it's a sort of an NDA territory, so I can't talk too
Yeah,
much about
fair
that.
enough.
But it's you'll learn more about that very soon. So yeah, that is Mixer in a nutshell, and that is where I spend a lot of my time, because it's like 50% of my materials I just grab straight out of the library for my environments. The other 50% I edit, like it can be small edits, like it can be making a stone tile floor a bit more worn down, or it can be transforming it completely, making it completely destroyed and stuff like that. So and it's like the thing that I like the most about it is the fact that it's so incredibly easy to pick up. Like I'm at conventions where we have booths. It's just like it's a really good place to sort of gauge how easy it is to pick up, because like you can see people come up there, grabbing the mouse and pulling sliders, and stuff happens. Like they it's just the old saying, was 5 minutes to learn, a lifetime to master. Like it's extremely easy to pick up, but like the possibilities are really endless, and that is somewhere that is what we put a lot of effort into, taking out, chiseling out or sanding down all the rough corners and making, you know, every single slider fun and understandable, pretty much.
Awesome. All right. Now I'd love, how'd you get into this? Because it's a fascinating career. If I go back and I look, like there was a period of time you spent 5 years in school, which is
Yep.
it's a lot of school, and I think it's fascinating, um, for because like when I went to school, people are like, oh, you're going to be an artist. Like, oh, you're on the long road to poverty, basically. Um, so they don't realize that, being an artist, you're super dedicated to craft. You went to school 5 years. You went to three different schools.
Yeah, two different schools. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So I started in. All right. So should I give you the whole story about how I got into this?
Yeah, because I mean, what I have here is you were in school around 2011. Last school was the game assembly, and then you were a junior 3D artist for a year, and then chief marketing artist, and then the lead artist and product artist. So yeah, I'd love to
Yep.
like hear. And what's particularly interesting to me is that first part of that transition of like, you got out of school. How'd you land this? Like, how'd you even think about this?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess most people sort of say this, but I've always been really creative. Like it's kind of embarrassing, but I mean it's online, so I might as well show you. So I mean I've always pretty much since I got my first computer, I've been doing photo manipulations, scanning my drawings and painting and making album covers for my punk band, all that kind of stuff. So I've always been fascinated with digital art, and I've always been an avid gamer. So when I found that flyer in the career consultant's office at school, it was. I mean, I got so excited. Like it pretty much said, you want to make games, apply here. I was pretty blown away, because games were something that pretty much just magically popped out of Japan somehow. I had absolutely no idea how they were made. Um, Absolutely no idea. I'm not even kidding. So yeah, I mean, I started studying at that school. A Yeah, I applied and I got in, first attempt, using this this artwork that I'm showing on the screen. It's for those of you who can't see the screen, it's a photo bash Frankenstein thing of a ninja frog with crab legs or something.
Hmm.
I used that, and I got into school. I guess they judged on creativity less than more than actual ability to make 3D. So yeah, I started studying there. It was a school in a small town, and I immediately fell in love with the craft. I I'm really thankful that I picked it up really quickly. Which is most likely why I really went at it. I noticed that I had a knack for it, which was really like gratifying. So I put in the hours. Like I actually had, you know, Gnomon DVDs playing as audiobooks in my headphones when I was sleeping. I was living, breathing, eating, drinking, 3D and CG and all that stuff. So I was absolutely absorbed. I might even say I was too absorbed. Like those 2 years are just a blur of tutorials and sleepless nights in the classroom. So yeah, 2 years, most likely more than like 3 years in real time.
And how
Spent.
old were you at this point?
I'm sorry.
How old were you at this point?
I was that was 2007, so that's 12, 20. I was 20 or 21.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I was still young back then. So and once I was done at that school, which concluded with a internship, which I actually did remotely for a small movie production. Now I can't remember what the company was called actually, but but the short film that we worked on was called as Azureus Rising. I don't know if you can link that somewhere, but it's yeah, it was a short film about like the cyber ninja. It was a ton of fun. I learned a lot, but I wanted to work. I felt that I wanted to work in games rather than movies. So I started looking for a job, um, which was getting pretty desperate because I was actually my son had actually been born just around that time. I think it was 22 then. So I was out of a job, just out of just done with internship, and I had to get a job desperately. So I got a job in the games industry in the town where I lived. Pretty much the same day that I started, properly looking. So I was really excited about that. I was extremely lucky, I would say, and that was for a company that worked on a pretty small MMORPG called Mortal Online.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard about that.
Mm-mm.
No, it's pretty niche. Free for all PvP open world. It's pretty hardcore, but it was a learning experience. There were a lot of long hours, I have to say. So yeah, I after about a year there, I decided that. So okay, so yeah, I started looking for another job, but I just couldn't find another job. So I said, hey, I want to go back to school. Like I want to brush up on the basics. I want to get even better. I want to have a better foundation. Since the first education was just 1.5 years, so I felt there were more areas that I could improve on. So I went back to school and I had a blast. That was the game assembly in Malmö, and that school is actually still around. And I mean, I can't recommend it enough. The teachers are absolutely amazing. One of the teachers are actually one of the teachers that were at my first school. So if you're in Sweden, you should check that school out. Sorry for me for plugging another school that you're at.
Absolutely, no worries.
Okay.
Take your time.
So I went back to school there, and actually after the first year, I went 1 year, a little bit more. I actually got a job at Massive. So I did not finish the sort of second education, but I started working at Massive Entertainment, a Ubisoft studio in Malmö, where I worked on the multiplayer part of Far Cry 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I mean, that was a huge thing for me. I loved the Far Cry games, and not having to move all across the world to work at a AAA game studio. It was pretty much just across the street from where I lived. So I was extremely excited, and it was a ton of fun. I learned a whole bunch of stuff, and I met a bunch of good friends. I think I was there for 1.5 or 2 years or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a blast. But while working there, I learned about this tool called Endo 1, and it was pretty much just um, Photoshop actions that let you convert grayscale uh, data to normal maps in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
So I started using that, and I made a couple environments, and I detailed some assets, and I was really blown away by it, because making normal maps was not very intuitive back then. Like, you had to use, I guess, Crazy Bump or the NVIDIA Photoshop filter.
Mm, I
Yeah.
remember.
So yeah, Endo was next gen back then, and right about that time when I learned about that tool, Endo 2, the sequel, was released, and I was excited. Like, it had an actual UI. You could edit, you could preview the changes in real time in Photoshop. Like, that was mind blowing back then. So I used that, and I made an environment. Let me scroll up this embarrassing list of old work so I can find it. Um, where is it? My art station. I guess it is. It was a Deus Ex corridor, and I actually don't think I have it here. That is weird. But yeah, I made a Deus Ex corridor. There it is. False alarm. So I made that using Endo 2, sent it over to Teddy, the CEO of Quixel, and I was like, hey, love your tool. It's absolutely mind blowing. It's revolutionizing my workflow. And I thanked him for all the work he'd put into it, and he liked what I'd done. So we started talking more and more and more. I did some more art using Endo. I helped to help spread the word. Like this one as well, this Solaris hallway fan art. And we talked more and more, and I guess about a year later, he actually gave me an offer to join the Quixel team, which was very small back then. I think it was just the the owners, and I was first employee in
Your first
2000.
employee.
Yeah, I was the first employee.
Sweet. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was just the owners and me. So uh, yes, that was in 2012.
And you
And
were still relatively new in the industry too.
yes, I was. I'd been working in the industry for about 3 years, I think,
Mhm.
and it was 5 years since after I started studying. And like joining an extremely small startup company when working at a triple A international Ubisoft, like that was a really scary step. But um, you know the whole, like, what really had me go, make the jump was the whole idea of killing crunch and killing repetitive boring work and just making artists lives easier, as I said before. Like that, because that was something, like, at that moment in in my career, I was really annoyed. I was new in the industry, and as I said, only working there for a few years, but I noticed how much repetitive work, how much crunch, and how much you know needless repetitive work there was. So, like, having those words spoken to me, from Teddy, like, really made me go, like, yeah, I want to be part of this. I want
Hmm.
to help. I want to help, artists out of boring work, pretty much. But I mean, it was obviously a risk, small company versus a multinational company. But I'm really happy I made a jump, looking back.
Yeah. And you guys, I mean, it wasn't all roses. Even though you guys were innovating and whatnot, you probably had some difficult times too.
Mhm. I mean, obviously, up until up until pretty recently. I mean, I did. I had like I did my toes in pretty much everything, every single department. Like I started out as chief marketing officer at Quixel,
Hmm.
uh, which only lasted for a little while. Like we noticed pretty quickly that my my strengths were more in art than it was
Hmm.
marketing. So I started making marketing material instead of actually marketing. So that's sort of how I was put on this path of making promotional artwork. And yeah, it's, I mean, obviously, like all companies, like it's not just roses for anyone. It's ups and downs, and it's blood, sweat, and tears, as cliche as it might sound. I've bled and I've cried. Yeah, it's um, yeah.
So, so what do you love about this industry that makes you put so much into it?
Like 99.9% of the people working in the industry are absolutely fantastic people. Like going to GDC is it's like going to Disneyland. You meet so many wonderful people, and it is a fantastic industry. Not only because of the people in the industry, but also like what they create and what that means to the world. Like sometimes I go like, why do I do what I do? Like, why am I not a doctor or like a fireman or firefighter? Like, what I make pixels on a screen.
Hmm.
And like entertainment is so incredibly important. Like in times when like when everything is good, people want environment because it just makes them happier. When times are bad, they need environment. They need entertainment. I'm not sure if I said, yeah, they
Yeah.
need entertainment to make them feel happy. So it's something that you always need, and it's something that's always there, and it's something that always makes you almost always makes you feel happy and better about yourself and the world. So it's like entertainment overall is just something that's been in my like in everyone's life, but it's something that's been very important to me. Games, music, movies, art, photography. Like, yeah, it's and I think the games industry, especially since like that's where I come from, is like the not only games but also movies. Like it's really you know, pushing so many things forward in a really rapid way. Like it's not just pushing like like Autodesk to make newer and better versions of Maya, but it's also
Right.
sort of it's AI. Like AI is something that is sort of getting pushed both by and for art, like making art faster and more beautiful. Like it's you see so much crazy stuff going on, but just because the industries are just pushing forward at such an insane rate, and it's so much fun. And like being at the being at the frontier of that is just really humbling and awesome. It's yeah.
And you have a family.
Hmm.
How old? You
I
said
have
you.
a son and a daughter, a girlfriend, a cat, and a dog, and I live in a house in the sticks of southern Sweden.
How old's your son? I think you said you had him at 22.
Yes, exactly. So he's 10. He just turned 10.
That changes perspective a bit, yeah? Because you were saying like,
Yep.
why aren't I a doctor, right? Which I can
Hmm.
relate to. It's like because we spend so much time studying. Like I remember I did some research and I was looking at this and I was like, Peter Paul. I went way back, and like Peter Paul Rubens studied for 11 years. Like as artists, we study, we practice our craft. Doctors, they go to school 11 years and yeah, they practice their craft and all that stuff. But I mean, it's a very stable life,
Yeah.
lots more. So you had a love for this that kind of kept you in, and you had to support a family,
Yep.
and you
So
did it.
yeah, I made it. I mean, I would even go as far as to say it's like it's part of the reason why I made it. It's something that really motivated me to really excel, like to try my hardest to excel at this, so that I can, obviously, provide and make my kids proud. It's something that's always sort of in the back of my head. Like I wonder what my son will think when he sees this. Like I just want to sort of impress him. So it's I guess it's been more of a
Nice, but I want to ground it a bit better. Values, so I find a good spot that I like. I'll continue tweak.
what's that?
No, we got someone else talking.
Oh, okay.
There we go. I thought that was actually your mic.
Oh no.
Somebody else. Anyways, I've muted everybody else. All right.
Right.
So, all right. So that motivates you. That keeps you kind of moving. And I think where I was going with this, and the part that's kind of interesting to me, is having family and having those responsibilities that aren't yours can lead us to make other choices, like something that's more stable, something that's more secure. But you persevered, you held to your craft, and you built a life that your son would be proud of, but at the same time didn't lose your soul just to provide. And I think that merits us taking a second, because that's a dilemma many people are when they come into this industry. They're looking at this and they're like, am I going to be able to, or should I just go and take that sales job?
Yeah.
What advice do you have for somebody who's in that position where they've got pressure, they need to provide, but they know that they have this in them?
Yeah, I mean, it's
conflict.
Yeah, I mean, that is a tricky one. Like it's that is a very tricky question, because obviously you should not end up on the street just because you're, like you want to work on games and you can't find a job. Like obviously, like at one point, like if things are getting desperate, obviously you need to swallow your pride and take that job that you don't really want. But I mean, that's such a tricky question. Like it's obviously you have responsibilities, and you need to make sure you can provide both for yourself and your family. And there's always a little bit of luck that plays into the outcome. But I would say in most cases hard work pays off. So stick to the guns and network, like talk to people. Like you need to, like, connections and networking is so incredibly important. So like if you're in a position where you can't get a job, you've used every single job application form out there, and you're not getting any replies, or you're not getting the replies that you want, like network, talk to people. I would say is one way that could really help you land a position. Because as I said, like when I was in a pretty desperate spot, when when my son was just born and I was unemployed, I did not get my job from like a job application. I actually got that from a sort of, okay, so the connection was that he was the founder of the school that I first went to that someone knew, and I got in touch with him due to one of his old students, pretty much. But it was still, a connection, networking. So and that worked for me. So I guess, long story short, like don't underestimate your connections and networking and going to conventions and meeting other artists.
Yeah, and I like what you said about don't underestimate hard work either. So if you were to start over today, because the tech is different today than it was when you started and when I started. If you were to start over today, what would you focus on? Assuming you had the pressures you had back then, which is, you have to provide, to some level or another. What would you focus on today?
I mean, like, yeah, it's I really envy, like, okay, so in two ways, like
Yeah.
I both envy the people coming into the industry today, and I also sort of wish they sort of had more of what we had. Like we, you know, us old folks in the industry, like we really had to learn, the hard way. Like we have, I would say, a very good understanding of the fundamentals, like what normal maps and like all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And like it's a little bit like, the kids today with their phones, and their computers. Like it's just something that's, readily available. It's easy to learn, easy to use, and it's designed for ease of access. It's sort of, yeah. It's, I guess that's one good thing of like learning the hard way back in the day. But so if I could go back today, I would, you know focus more on, like, I would look around more, like look at the different solutions and different pipelines available, because I was pretty shoehorned into the, set in stone kind of pipeline, but for that day, using Maya, make a high poly, quads only, and then, that whole pipeline. And it was very, yeah, I mean, it was a solid pipeline, but it was slow and was boring. So if I could go back, I would look, like, if I could go back with the current, tools that are available now back then, I would look at, learning as many tools and possible pipelines as possible. Something that could just help me make my art faster and better. Because, like, looking back at my portfolio, like, it's almost, like, I'm face palming when I look at some of my older stuff. Like, I can remember, working, for a week or two on something that would take me, you know a work day to day. Like, obviously it goes faster because I have more experience today, but also because, better tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, there's one thing I want to look at the Counter Strike, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
sorry. And I would
Yeah.
also learn drawing,
Okay.
because it's something that I always wanted to be good at,
Yeah.
that I didn't focus enough on. But yeah, learn drawing because it's so useful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the Counter Strike, I think this is another important kind of piece for us to look at and understand what environment artists have to do today, and then, folks, if you guys have questions, now's the time to get those typed up over there. And if you have work that you want reviewed, please post the links ASAP. So why don't we start with Alberto? Alberto's saying, how do you move from assets to assembling a scene? Which is kind of where I'm going at here, because this is beautiful. This Counter-Strike scene that you've done here, and it's huge.
It is. It is very huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine if one of my students pulls this together, and it has, let's say even 25% of the quality level in this, is still a massive achievement. It's a lot to do. So if we go to Alberto's, it's how do you move from assets to assembling a scene?
Right. So really, I made both a tutorial and a breakdown on this. Like, if
Hmm.
you want a little bit more, like, in-depth, information on how I made this. But really, what I did was I created a blockout, extremely basic blockout,
Hmm.
using a, photogrammetry from in-game. Actually, I went around, you know like, print screen, print screen, print screen, like, I think, 2,000 pictures. So, and I and I got this model from the in-game, like, scans. Yeah, I know I could use, like, Hammer Viewer or whatever it's called, but yeah, this was fun. So I made a blockout model and I put it in engine. I got the lighting, somewhat, okay, and then, using that blockout, I started, loading in materials and trying them out, and I started loading in, models, like the planks and the beams, stuff like that, and wood pallets, things like that. So like answering the question, how do I go from assets to assembling a scene? I would say it was a very iterative process. Like it wasn't like, oh, I had this set list, like, okay, so these are the assets and I'm gonna make the scene using these. It was more a bit back and forth. Like I made a lot of stuff by hand. Like all the buildings and everything are handcrafted, like they're hand modeled,
Mm-hmm.
and then I made them look better and good with the assets, like the materials and the decals and the 3D assets and the plants and all that. So it's kind of hard to give a good answers to that. It's just like my entire workflow is very iterative. It's like I focus on one area and then I go back, focus on another area. Then I realize the other area didn't look as good, so I go back to that. So I don't really go from point A to point B. I go like to point A to D to B to A to C. It's a lot of back and forth and wiggle waggle.
Awesome.
Mm.
Alberto, does that help get you a sense of things?
I don't think
Alberto,
it does.
Alberto, he's saying, he has a huge focus. Like, he's just having a hard time getting the focus in. But if I could paraphrase, I'd say the key thing is, the key word I heard was iteration.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very rare in my workflow that I just right off the bat start modeling something and I spend days or weeks on it. Like it's very, very rare. It's like I start really rough and I refine piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes I spend a little bit more time on that little piece. For example, in this scene, like I started applying materials and the lighting and getting some basic atmospherics in, and I started applying the materials on this centerpiece here in the image. With the blue door here, and that started looking good. So that sort of piqued my interest and made me focus a bit more on that. And started adding some decals, and that sort of became a baseline. Like I got really happy with the way that turned out. So that became like a baseline for how the rest should look. And then I jumped into the building to the left here, sort of getting that up to that quality level. And I started jumping around, and I got everything up to one level. And I was like, yeah, this looks good. And it doesn't look good enough though. So I started, improving piece by piece by piece by piece. And I jumped around like an idiot, like on every single part. Like I'm sure there are more optimized workflows to do this. But it's just a way that it's something that helps me keep my focus. Like to always have it sort of look, have something look good that I can focus on. Instead of, working on this model for ages that it's just like it's a gray model, and like, okay, then we have to make it low poly and bake it and put it in the engine. Oh wait, no, I have to texture it first and then put it in engine. It's like it's kind of fun to just jump right into it and like have it interactable and have it sort of looking good from the start. That helps me keep focus and keep um, you know helps keep my attention.
Got it. Perfect. All right, man. Thank you for that, Alberto. Well, Alberto's asking one more that I think might be relevant. Do you block out in engine or 3D modeling?
Both actually. So
Of course.
yeah. So what I did for this one is I actually made the entire thing in Maya. Like I just like the entire level I made in Maya,
Mm-hmm.
exported it into the engine, and I used that rough model to just get the lighting in.
Okay.
And once that was done and the scale and everything felt okay, I started separating all the parts into the respective parts.
Okay.
So like each building was its own building, and then I used those parts from the block out to start refining and actually creating the proper models. But I also used BSPs from the engine, like to like for the wall. I think the wall I blocked out using BSPs in the engine, and like the crates and barrels and stuff like that.
Cool. All right, I got two questions, and then Shen Jarvis has some work that she'd love your eyes on. The first question, you mentioned AI before, And there's some really cool and scary tools. Like, there's a guy, Control Shift Face, doing some really crazy stuff
Yes.
with faces and audio, like Joe Rogan's voice completely done from a script.
Mhm.
And so there's some crazy stuff there. And then there's the Promethean AI,
Yeah.
which is the assembly, and it's all word based. It's clean it up, like make it a little more messy. 80s room, and 80s kids room, and it'll put Star Trek or Star Wars posters in there, right?
Yeah.
Um, what do you think the impact of this is going to be for environment artists? And where I'm going with this, I mean, I'm not a fear monger. I mean, but it's interesting to be looking at this now and going like, well, in all honesty, we got no idea what most jobs are going to be like in 5 years. But like an environment artist, what's our job going to be like? How do you see this stuff impacting us?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you said fear mongering. Like I personally, I'm not scared at all as an
Yeah.
artist. I think it's like AI is starting to seep into every aspect of our lives. Like it's like slowly but surely it's coming in there, and I think it's for the like obviously you know obviously you think about Skynet, Terminator and stuff like that, but I am trying to stay optimistic, and I try to see it as something that can really help us.
Hmm.
I don't think it's obviously it's going to take some jobs in all industries all across the world, but it's also going to create new jobs, just like pretty much robots. Like you still need people to develop the robots and to maintain the robots and to and it sort of gives people new jobs.
Hmm.
If you look at the car industry, for example, but I don't think AI is going to steal jobs, from the environment art world at all. I think it's more going to become a tool in the tool belt. I think it's going to empower the artists in a big way. How that's going to look, I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows, but I mean, since like looking at the developments that's going on, I think it's pretty inevitable that it's going to become a um, something that's going to help artists.
Because it's conceivable, like when you look at procedural materials, for example,
Mhm.
it's conceivable that's all AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's yeah, and the thing is, like AI is like exponential.
Hmm.
It's just going faster and faster and faster and becoming better and better and better. So it's I mean it's I don't know enough. Like I can't make a educated like guess about how it's gonna look. I just know I'm really excited about it,
Yeah.
and that I am not scared. Yeah, I'm not scared about it. I'm just excited.
Awesome. All right, last
Yeah.
question before we look at some work. How much do you attribute your career to luck and how much to hard work?
Ooh, I would say like percentage wise, I would say like 20% luck and 80% hard work. Like it's well, I don't know, like hard work. Like I'm trying to work smart more than hard,
Hmm.
but still, it's at times in my life I've been working for 16 hours. Like once I'm done at work, I'm working on my personal art and personal projects, like be it art or be it writing or whatever. It's just like I work really really hard. Um, yeah, I'm trying to work smart, but obviously all that hard work would be for naught if it wasn't for some luck. And like for example, luck in connecting with the founder of my old school to get my first job in the industry,
Right.
and luck that um like I got in touch with Teddy to get my job at Quixel. Like
Hmm.
it's I would say like that is luck. It's a mixture of luck and obviously hard work. But I don't think you can just sit back and go like, hey, yeah, I'll let luck handle this for me, because I've come to realize like that the harder I work, the luckier I am, and I think there's correlation.
Totally makes sense, man. Thank you so much. All right, guys, get questions out if you got them. But Victor, man, thank you for taking the time and answering those questions.
Of course.
And if you don't mind, Shen has put in the chat, she's put a link to her ArtStation and her main site, and she went through the boot camp, a year or so ago. Shen, do you want to tell them what you're doing these days? Do you see yeah, you got it. Okay, great.
Yep, there we go.
She got a really cool job right now. It's actually, I'm very fascinated at where this is all going.
House.
She's in the AR team over there at House.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, really cool stuff here. So is there something in particular that you would like me to feedback on, or is it just looking through the?
No, let's get something specific. I'm a big fan on specific. So, Shen, do you want the last piece? Does that work for you? Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so one of the things that we do in the boot camp, and one of the things that's really important to me is, and I think you feel the same. It's like mastery is unending. Like if you develop any skill in something, you realize that there's no end to that road.
Yeah.
So what I like to do with the students is I like to be clear on what are the triggers that help somebody get a job, and what are the triggers that hurt them getting a job. And so that's what we really focus on. So if you were to look at this, the key thing for me would be is like, we see this, what tells me she's a job candidate and what tells me she's not a job candidate. And that's all we really focus on fixing, if that makes sense.
Yep. So, I was looking here. So, I might have missed your part of your question because I was absorbed by the art. So, if I'm sorry, could you repeat the?
Yeah, not to worry. No, it's real simple. So, we work on triggers. So the questions I ask myself when I'm looking at their work is, what tells me they're a job candidate, and what tells me they're not a job candidate?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes total sense. So it would be taste and the eye. Those two things are the hardest things to train, in my opinion and experience. And it's also those two things that will help you become a good artist down the road, regardless of your technical or artistic skills. But if you have that, like an eye for art and a good taste, and taste is a very abstract thing, and it's very hard to put a finger on exactly what it is. But it's something that you can instantly tell, like this person has taste, or I hope I can tell. I think I can tell. But that is the first thing that I look at when someone sends in a job application. Like it takes me a couple seconds, and I can tell, yeah, this person has a good eye and or good taste. Lacking some skills or not lacking some skills, but like that is the first thing I see.
Okay.
So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what about her work tells you?
I would say
she's good to go. Or not.
Yeah, she definitely has taste. That was the first thing I noticed. Like overall, like just the first glance at her, looking at her portfolio, good colors, nice, clear shapes, there is just balance and everything. So yeah, looking at this as a recruiter, I would get a good first impression, just even before looking into something. And so yeah, I see Michael asking if I can show a bad example of taste. I don't think it would be in good taste to show bad taste in a setting like this, I'm afraid. But I mean, if you look at it like on a high level, like bad taste would be poor choices of colors, things that it is. It's like I said, it's kind of abstract. It's just it's more of a feeling, in my opinion,
Hmm.
more than it is, technical. Like, this is too much of this and this is too little of that. Like that is, um, it's just the sum of all the parts. Like that is the taste, I would say. And it's like it's the small things, like, uh, you know, no, it's really hard to give a like a go to and like a good answer to that.
Hmm.
I'm afraid.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you're looking at this work, what's your advice for her to do then?
Mhm. What was that? Some advice for her for this scene?
Yeah, what does she have to fix?
Right. So focal point. So looking at this, there are a lot of beautiful assets.
Hmm.
Some gory, nasty assets, but overall beautiful. Like the carpet here on the floor looks awesome. You got this really nice furniture and these what's it called? Like the not balustrades. Yeah, like these woodwork, like on the top part here. Like there are a lot of things that look gorgeous, and I mean, it makes sense to have to sort of have everything in focus, but like having everything in focus makes it hard to focus. I am like, I don't know where to look in this picture. Like looking at this table here on the left side with the candles. Yeah, like, I mean, it draws my eye. Like it's one of the most one of the brightest points in the picture. Um, but nothing really happens here. But then I'm drawn to the center part here, and I guess the reason why I'm drawn to the center part is because that like the light temperature is colder here, and like colder, like I guess I'm not a psychologist, but in my experience, like you're always drawn to bright and warm colors before colder colors. Like, this is colder, and there's a lot of stuff happening here. But then I'm drawn to this flag back here. Like my eye is just going all over this scene, and not necessarily bad. Like it's as I said, like there are a lot of good looking things, but I would like a focal point. And yeah, so there are a couple of ways you can do that. One being obviously using, vignetting. Like vignetting is a really, really like simple way of, focusing the eye, because vignetting, it darkens very subtly, preferably the outer parts. It's like a camera. Um, like when doing photography, it's not something that you want, but it can be really useful in some cases when you really want to sort of draw, like cause a little bit of tunnel vision, like focusing the eye. But that is not the way I would go about this. What I would do is I would um, use light. I would make this part here, like the center part, the desk with the skulls. I would make that a bit brighter. I would add a highlight, like an actual light, visible light source in this desk lamp here. Because right now we're just getting some volumetric fog coming out of here. But
Hmm.
if you would actually turn a light on, angle it towards the camera, and like especially a camera that is in a dark environment like this, with the shutter speed really high and or low and everything, like that would be bright, and that would draw the eye right up to this part where I'm guessing you want the focus to be. um like maybe not having these candles on the right side but putting them on the desk here. A lot of small things, like just like trying to use warm and cold colors to guide the eye, like warm in the center, cold in the back, or on the sides, and using bright colors in the center, and less bright values on the sides. Obviously, you should not make everything pitch black except for the center. But as I said, like use the color temperature. You could make the entire environment, like the overall colors, like the blues and the greens, like it really makes those are good colors for these kinds of settings, and they're I mean, I think you could use the lighting as it is pretty much for the backdrop, but I would just, rework the lighting for the focal point, brighter and warmer, because it would make a nice contrast with the warms against the colds.
Got it. So definitely the lighting is the big
Yep.
thing to focus on.
That is a big thing to focus on, yeah. Like at first glance. Then I noticed something that always bugs me, like things in the foreground that are way too low poly. Like this is a bit nitpicky, but like please add some more polygons to this desk lamp here.
That's awesome. That's a great point, because artists are always trying to keep things so low res.
Yeah.
They never know where to draw that line. But
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like this candle looks like it's, like 400 or 500 triangles, and this one looks like it's, half of that. So it just makes more sense to do it on this lamp, because it's a big shape, and it's, really visible. So it's, yeah, optimize things, of course, but optimize in a way, like remove triangles that are not visible, but like don't save triangles where they're really visible, because it's just pulls you out. Like you just see the topology or triangles.
awesome.
Mm.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I think there were a couple more questions about taste, but I don't want to. That's an open-ended thing, so we save that for another podcast.
Yeah, and here, by the way, sorry, just go back here. Here is a good example. Like my eye is instantly drawn to this furniture here, with the warm light from the candles, in contrast to the cold light coming out from the full moon lighting in the windows. So yeah, this is a good example. Like here, the composition and lighting works really well. The only thing I would, I guess, do differently here is to add some cast shadows from the window. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. That's great. Oh, Susan's here checking on me. All right, Victor, man, thank you so much for everything. It was really great to get to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you so much for having me. It was a ton of fun.
Awesome. All right, guys, thanks for joining live if you're here, and I'll see you guys in the community. Victor, take care.
Take care. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.